Serious. How did you respond after your ex wanted you back after leaving you? Story 1. I ran into her at a bar after 6 months of no contact while she was out with some other dude. Almost ran away from her. Had that flight response for sure. She grabbed my arm and said, "Please talk to me." Talked with her for 5 minutes. Left her and went to another bar and then got home where she called me and we talked till 4 a.m. The next afternoon I agreed to hang out with her and she was all over me and I was holding back. Dropped her off at her place and by some miracle didn't get frisky with her as she suddenly made really bold moves on me. She was a smoking hot blonde with a lot of crazy. I went home to ice the boys down. The next morning I got a collect call from the county jail. It was her asking for a ride. After I left she got into a fight with her mom and threw a fit with her. I picked her up and told her that I couldn't ever hang out with her like that ever again. She nodded and I dropped her off. I kept in touch with her since I thought I was the only guy who cared for her but didn't want anything intimate out of her for the next 6 months. She told me she was going to move to the West Coast one day and I agreed to hang out with her the night before she left. She ended up crying all over me as I was dropping her off, saying how much she loved me and messed up and how she didn't ever want to lose me in her life. I promised her that I'd always be there for her. While she was on the West Coast, we ended up talking on the phone on a daily basis, quite frequently. She was a great friend. One morning on the way to work, I realized I hadn't heard from her the night before. I called her phone and it was disconnected. I find it odd but didn't think too much of it. I got home from work and I got a phone call from a friend who was friends with our mutual friends on Facebook, as I never friended her on Facebook after our breakup, saying, "Dude, she's gone. She was on too much booze and meds." I didn't realize that I was still talking to her on a daily basis. It floored me. I thought back to that night at the bar and how I would have missed out on the last year of her life if I'd run out instead of actually talking to her and just being there for her. Sometimes, no matter how or why they left you, it's not a bad thing to just be there for someone. I wish I could have been there more somehow. Maybe she would still be here. Story 2. My ex only wanted me back when I told him I was going to go on a date with someone else. This was after he had 12 affairs in the span of our 8-year relationship and left me seemingly at random. He cried and threatened to end it all. I was very calm and gentle with him and told him I would like us to keep being friends as we had been in the last 6 months since he dumped me. He kept telling me I was the best person on the planet and that no one but him would ever make me happy or treat me right. Then he threw a fit. I said I wasn't going to compromise my happiness for his, which I had done for many years, and he blatantly asked me to just pretend and said I'd never whinged about my happiness before and he couldn't believe that I was so selfish and I was half the person he thought I was. He cried some more. For the first time in my life, I stuck to my guts, and he called me names. The joke's on him. I went out with the other guy, fell madly in love, and am now deliriously happy, while my ex's next girlfriend cheated on him. The classic emotional manipulation. So glad they got out of that. Story 3. Not me, but my buddy. I was on a call with a close childhood friend a lot for about 11 months after university, and we talked about things from the mundane to his breakups and worries about his school plus future. We played games often and laughed a lot. Promised to go visit him this winter, even though I had my ticket booked. A few weeks ago, he was gone. We were talking the night before that happened, and I fell asleep on him about midway through our call because I was tired from working overtime that day. It came suddenly and unexpectedly, but the thing is, everyone keeps telling me I did my best and his family is thanking me. I didn't even know about it and suddenly he was gone. I've lost many friends, but to lose someone just like that was a shock. There really was nothing I saw that even hinted at any sign. Since then, I've learned and grown, and one thing I can see is that I'm not to blame. Story 4. Not positive she was explicitly trying to get back with me, but about 1.5 years after getting out of a messy relationship with her that ended with her cheating on me, she reached out to me on Facebook trying to reconnect. "I was in the school library today and I saw someone that looked like you. Are you still in town? Can we meet up?" I wasn't in school at this point and had recently dropped out because I couldn't bounce back academically from the damage sustained during and after our relationship. My response was an ignore and an unfriend, followed by unfriending every person on Facebook that I hadn't talked to in the past year or so, followed by deactivation of said Facebook. It probably wouldn't have felt like trash to hear from her if the previous message in the chat history wasn't the message she sent me to officially break up with me. Probably not the most mature reaction, but it wasn't the most mature relationship. Story 5. She broke up with me sort of out of the blue, and I wasn't really prepared for it. Never quite got over her, but time passed and I was living with a girlfriend several years later. My ex had kept in touch with me, and we were still friendly. She went through a breakup and I suppose she was emotionally vulnerable, started talking to me a lot out of the blue and began to tell me all sorts of things about how she regretted breaking up with me, and it was just immature insecurities that had led her to it and how jealous she was that she couldn't have me. As flattering as it was to hear all of that, I was still spoken for. So I kindly deflected the issue until she got her head on straight and mellowed out, got her life together, that sort of thing. We're still friends 7 years after that, and presumably she's moved on. At least I hope she has since she's looking at buying a house with her fiancé. I never expected something so mature to end up on a Reddit thread. I was totally expecting the ex to turn into a psycho.
What was the worst time you walked in?
Rufus Rugs, open up! Sorry for barging in like that, but I just had to share the sponsor of today's video. Me and the boys from Rufus Rugs. Now you might be saying to yourself,
excuse me, what the actual are you doing in my house?
but I can assure you're gonna like this. We've been hard at work creating the best quality and premium hand-tufted rugs money can buy. Now imagine this. You, chilling on your bed, watching a Rufus Stories video, and staring at a rug that's not just a rug. Nope, it's a masterpiece. It's the kind of rug that makes your friends wish they were you. But they're not. And the best part is that these aren't your average cheap quality rugs. Nope, each one is handcrafted by me and the boys. No shortcuts, no robot assembly lines, and no dropshipping BS. Just pure rug grind. Whether you love anime, sports, cars, or anything else you can think of, we can turn it into a rug. So click the first link in the description and have your custom idea come to life.
Story 6. You'll hear a lot of people tell you it's a mistake to say yes. Those people are not wrong, but they're not right either. I met this girl in high school. At a conference for overachievers in math, we hang out at the conference. I then did other things teenagers do when parental supervision is limited at the conference, and then went back to our homes, about 4 hours drive apart. We kept in touch. Long distance was expensive, but ICQ and MRIC worked really well. She went away to a math camp for the summer. I went off to work, but we both made plans to get together in the fall and just hang out. Didn't work like that, of course. Leaving aside all the teenage hormone-driven stuff, I really liked being around her. And while I can't speak for certain, she really liked being around me. So when I visited her and she visited me, well, things just seemed to fall into place such as it was. The distance was daunting, but we said we'd give it a go. It lasted about a month before she wanted out. I didn't blame her. It wasn't acrimonious or anything. She just had problems dealing with the distance. We still enjoyed being around one another, so we kept in touch. And over Christmas break, we made arrangements to spend some time with each other again. You can guess what happened. That run made it until July or August. Can't remember. I was away working again. She was getting ready to go off to university. She was going out of province while I was going to be stuck doing first-year transfer work at my local college. She decided she wanted out before that distance became real. That one made me angry. She dropped it on me while I was away working. It made things difficult for me to deal with. On the other hand, being away probably helped too, since I could throw myself into what I was doing and just push it out of my head for a time. I flirted with some of the girls there, half-heartedly perhaps, but I was trying. I came home and went on a few dates, but nothing. She tried too, but found like me that it just didn't feel the same. They kept in touch and we found, oddly enough, or perhaps not oddly at all, that we were jealous when we talked about trying to move on in our relationship. When she came home at Thanksgiving, I went to visit her and we fell right back into our old habits. So we had a serious talk about it, and we realized that, like it or not, we were in a relationship. A complicated one, but it was a relationship. If we wanted to move on from it, we would have to cut ourselves off from one another, or we could just deal with the distance. Dealing with the distance seemed like a better choice than cutting a close friend out of our lives, so we dealt with it. I'm not saying we did it well, but we did it. We made lots of time for one another. I went up to visit her when the school year ended. She made arrangements to come visit me during her short visits home. We both altered our plans so that we could cut down the distance the next year. I changed universities and she changed co-op locations. And now, 18 years after we first met, we're 7 years married and have a wonderful daughter. Because I said yes to my ex. Story 7. I told her I had to think about it, that maybe we could just be friends. Then we got together for some kisses and we were back at it again. I ended up breaking up with her about 6 months later. When she broke up with me, we were out and about, and I had to drive her home. It was a little awkward and I wasn't saying anything. She assumed I was raging mad and depressed. If that tells you anything about her crazy level, I wasn't. I was kind of relieved, actually. She sent a friend to check up on me about a month into our breakup because she was still under the impression that I was depressed following her dumping me. I told her friend that my ex shouldn't flatter herself thinking I was that sad over her. I guess those were the magic words because she was asking for me back within about 2 weeks. I'm glad that relationship's over. Story 8. It was a Friday night when she asked to meet up at the local mall. I ended up picking up a game, Castlevania, while we were there. We ended up going back to my house and watching movies. She ended up asking me if I would be willing to be her boyfriend again. I said yes, despite my instincts telling me not to. That night, I ended up tobogganing with a group of friends. I ended up going through a fence and don't remember much of the night. Ended up with a long hospital visit, blah blah blah. Anyway, she called me the next day and the biggest BS in the world took over my body. Before she could even speak, I was yelling into the phone, "Whoa, long time no talk, what have you been up to?" She was chit-chatty and asked about my day. I told her I got a new game and a concussion the night before, and that's all I remember. She cried on the phone and insisted we spend the day together. But I insisted on how crazy and unlike me that was. Oh god, fake amnesia. This is sitcom worthy. If you want to see something this funny on TV, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Story 9. At 16, I met my first love. And after 9 months, he dumped me. I was going to uni and didn't want a girlfriend. I've never felt heartbreak like it, and I was absolutely distraught. Even though it was really hard for me, we stayed friends. I never stopped having feelings for him, even when I started seeing someone else. 6 years went by, and one day he was buzzed and told me that he had feelings for me still. It was really hard to take and messed my head up quite a bit. I was miserable in my relationship at the time, living far from home, having no money, no time for friends because of a terrible job, etc. This was the thing that just pushed me over the edge. I broke up with my ex, moved back home, got a new job, and get to spend time with friends that I had missed since I had been gone. After a month or so, we both realized that we were happier in each other's company. There was something between us still. In secret, we dated for around 4 months, as our friends, my best friend in particular, would have disapproved straight away. We then decided that we couldn't be apart and moved in together. Our friends got over their initial worries about us being back together, and everything was fine. Almost 4 years later, we bought a house together and adopted a little kid. We've talked about marriage and kids, and we both decided we have a lot of things we want to do beforehand. So yeah, those filler years were just horrible. Seeing him when I came home from uni and having the same friends didn't help either. It took a few years to gain complete trust in him back, as I was terrified that he would just leave me again. But many times he's shown me that I have nothing to worry about. I would go through the heartache he caused me every single day just to get where we are now. Story 10. It happened a long time ago, and yes, I know, it's childish. A week beforehand, she had gone out of her way to tell me about how she never really loved me and how there were always other guys that she had more feelings for. She said that she only ever dated me because I was so caring and nice, but that she never had any real feelings for me as she does for this and that guy. She actually gave me examples of guys that she had adamantly defended as just friends while we were dating, but I wasn't that naive, at least. I got pissed right off, and she acted like it was totally casual to drop that on me for no reason after a hard breakup. Then she goes and gets rejected by those guys in pretty humiliating ways. So much so that I heard about it from a friend of my roommates who didn't even know that I had any connection with her. Then she comes crying back to me for emotional support. I laughed on the inside but played along. One night she asked me to come over and we ended up having some fun. As soon as I was done, I just grabbed my clothes and left while she was still trying to get there by herself. By the time I got home, I had about a dozen messages. I told her I didn't really like her and that I only liked her for the fact that she got under the sheets with me. Yeah, petty and childish, but I still think she deserved it. Just now I probably wouldn't do it and just attempt to be the bigger man. As Sun Tzu once said, the absolute best time to break up with somebody is after you're done, but before they are. Story 11. My ex of almost 3 years wanted to take a break while I went to Spain for 4 months. I told him no, we're either staying together or breaking up. So we broke up. I was pissed more than anything. We've gone through 2 breakups before that lasted no more than a week or 2 before he came crawling back. I love this kid. I did so much for him and worked so hard in our relationship. He loved me, I know, but he put no effort into it and treated me as an option most times. I ended up meeting someone before I left for Spain, the same week we broke up. We kept in touch. 4 months later, I returned from Spain. The day after I got home, guess who texted me? My ex. Somehow he found out I returned and it was clear he was slowly working his way back into my life. I'm no dummy. I started dating this other guy and it was clear he liked me a lot. I was really starting to like him too. I hang out with my ex a bunch too, as friends. Nothing more, seriously. About a month or 2 went by after my return and my ex had been going through some serious depression. He's a functioning alcoholic and eventually, I think he was sick of who he was. Maybe this made him realize how important I was to him. Once he was sober for more than a day, the doctor ordered he didn't drink for a few months after that. He basically told me what I always wanted to hear, that he never appreciated me and loved me and was so sorry for everything. I believe that he meant it, but I told him I was dating the other guy and that I wasn't interested in getting back together. I was so proud of myself for not getting back with him. I'm finally with someone I deserve and he deserves me. He's so good to me. I was never mean to my ex, but I told him I wasn't interested in getting back together. I told him that one day our paths may cross again, who knows. After what I've heard about him since, I could never date him again. He's apparently gotten around to a disgusting extent. I wouldn't want to be with him anyway. Getting back together with an ex is almost always a bad idea unless it's been a long, long time since the relationship ended. I mean, you've dated other people and have gone over each other. It's really rare that relationships work when exes get back together without a true healing process involved. I'm so happy I stayed strong and didn't get back together with him, even though in my heart I was so sad not to get back with him. I still miss him, but it's different now. Story 12. The first girl I fell in love with dumped me the day she left for university. We were both young, so in hindsight I can see why she wouldn't want to be with me despite consistently reassuring each other we would do the whole long-distance thing. I was devastated. It took me months before I started to see other people. The time passed and she began to get depressed, or claimed to be, while she was away and would look to me for support. I gave her minimal because it hurt me too much, because of how blindly in love I used to be with her. I met this gorgeous girl at a party at one of the universities my friend was going to. She was stunning, and we hit it off really well. Ended up going on a couple of dates and talking constantly. My ex ended up coming home permanently because she didn't like where she was, and long story short, we got back together and I had to break it off with the girl I'd been seeing. It was the biggest mistake I've ever made. The following year was awful with her. She was absolutely manipulative, a liar, and took advantage of me. My judgment was clouded and I suffered greatly because of it. I found out she was having fun with loads of people when she was away. She lied about all of it. I ended things with her, and over the next year and a bit, I tried to patch things up with this girl I was seeing before, but it was no use. She was with someone already. I apologized profusely. She admitted to really liking me and was extremely hurt when I blew her off. We would talk here and there, and I couldn't get her off my mind. This will probably be buried. I've written more than I intended, but I am now with that girl. The timing was never right. She ended up studying abroad and we did long distance together after patching it up. She's back now and we've been together for almost 7 months. I couldn't be happier. She's the most trustworthy, gorgeous, and genuine girl I've ever met. I can finally admit that I'm in love again. It's mind-blowing and juicier than ever. It couldn't be better. I love you, Rebecca. Story 13. My wife left me for some weirdo dealer. It was definitely a blow to my ego. We had just moved to a new state and I had just started a new job. It took me about 6 months to get my stuff together and quit being too hard on myself. I had become a store employee at the job, lost 20 pounds, got custody of the kids and a new girlfriend. About a year goes by and the girlfriend and I break it off. It wasn't an angry breakup, I just didn't have a ton of time for her since I had my kids. Well, my ex-wife finds out we broke up. She comes strolling over to my place while the kids are at school, breaks open a bag of chips and starts rattling off a list of a bunch of things I need to change about myself if I want to get back together with her. A few moments pass in silence. I laugh, open my door, and I tell her to get out. The look on her face. Crushed expectations, failed dreams. I still laugh when I think about it. I don't know what the positives were for his wife. I really can't think of one. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. Ex threatened to end themselves over a breakup. Story 2 is messed up. See you in that video.